Okay.
Okay, good morning, Vienna, India. This is Max Srinivasan, and I would like to welcome you all for this broadcast. I would like to also thank Dr. Ivan Misner, our founder for BNI, who has graciously agreed to take some time off and do six such series for us, one each month. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Dr. Ivan. Ivan, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mac. There we go. Are you able to see my video, Mac? I'll take that as a
Yes,
yes.
Ivan. Yes, we can see.
Fantastic. Hello, BNI India. It's so good to be here and to talk to you. Namaste. I visited your beautiful country a few years ago. Really enjoyed it. Let me tell you, I am incredibly impressed. This is going to be, India has set another record for the organization. This is going to be the largest webinar in the history of BNI. The good news is we have 2,130 people signed up for this webinar. 2,130 people. The bad news is only 1,000 people can log in. So this is being recorded, and I will share this recording so that you may make it available. And for those of you who are not able to, for those people who are not able to see it live, that you'll be able to watch the recording. Okay, so here's the plan for today. I am going to go through some material in this PowerPoint presentation that you're about to see. And once I'm done with the material, I'm going to open it up for questions. And then I'm going to take as many questions in the time that we have available. At the end of the webinar, I'm going to kind of review some of the things that I'll be talking about in future webinars. So let's jump in here. And again, congratulations to you. What a huge turnout. We are going to have over 1,000 people or up to 1,000 people on this webinar today. So I'm going to shut my video webcam off and just do the presentation. And when we get to Q&A, I will turn the webcam back on and we'll continue the Q&A portion with my webcam. Okay. Let's get started. We're going to be talking about some research that has been done, but when it comes to something like this particular topic, and this topic is, if you stay longer in BNI, you're going to make money. But look, don't just trust me. Don't just trust what someone tells you, because you've been hearing this probably for a long time, that the longer you're in BNI, the more successful you're going to be. You don't have to just trust it when someone says that. Let's look at the facts, because there's actually a lot of hard data on this topic. There's been a lot of research done over the years on this topic. And what's really interesting is that there has been a consistent pattern of results over the decades. So since I started BNI in 1985, there has been a consistent pattern of results. And let's go way back to my doctoral dissertation back in the dark ages. In 1993, published my doctoral dissertation. And you can start to see the kinds of things that we saw even early on. This was in 1993, so this was only 8 years after BNI started. But one of the things that I did in my doctoral dissertation was take a look at the years of membership that someone had been in the organization and how much business they had generated that was under $1,000 and how much business they generated over $1,000. Now remember, this was 1993, so it was based on a survey done in 92. So the numbers have changed substantially. But what I wanted to do was to see, did longevity impact the value of referrals? That was the concept. And you'll notice that 76% of the largest, now this isn't just the average value, this is the largest single referral in net income. So it's not the total, it's not that they got $1,000 total in all the business they did. This is their largest referral. And you'll notice that 76% of the respondents in this survey said that their largest referral, their first year of membership, was under $1,000. But now look at 4 years later, 80% of those same people said that their largest referral was over $1,000. So what this is telling you is that the longer you're in the organization, the higher the value of the referrals. And this goes all the way back to 1993. And there's a little bit more from that dissertation, which is, I think, interesting, and that is the number of referrals. For people who've been in the organization for 1 year or less, the number of referrals they received was approximately 50. Well, the number of referrals they received from 0 to 9, that is, 57.4% of the respondents received no referrals or 9 referrals in their first year. So they're a member for 1 year, and they get anything from 0 to 9 referrals. Now you look at the same screen, and I've got someone saying their screen is blank. Sanjay, I'm sorry your screen is blank, but I'm pretty sure everyone can see what I'm showing. Mac, if you can't see what I'm showing, please speak up. Otherwise, I'm going to assume everyone's able to see this. So if you're in for 1 year, 57% said they got less than 10 referrals. But now look at those who are in for 4 years. 4 years, 0 got less than 10 referrals. And 40% got between 60 and 99 referrals. And 24 got over 100 referrals. Again, this is hard data showing that longevity in a chapter will get you more referrals at a higher value. But there's more that shows this. It's not just my doctoral dissertation. There's a 2008 University of Phoenix doctoral dissertation that was done that showed how the percentage of referrals that went up as people became more and more acquainted. That is, if there was no relationship between the parties, the percentage was okay. Oh, and this is over time, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. But that as they became closer and more well-connected, referrals went up dramatically. There was a study done in 2012 by Murray Consultancy that took a look at the referrals by the length of membership. And this was just in the first 12 months. You can see that the longer people were in over that 12-month period, the more their referrals went up. Here's one of my favorite studies. It was done in the UK in 2012. And this showed the value of referrals, both direct referrals and indirect referrals. And this is the average value, but I'm going to show you in the next slide, which shows how that average value goes up over time. Now, this was done 4 years ago, and in direct referrals, they received approximately $38,000 US worth of direct referrals on average for the members. Indirect referrals being referrals from referrals, another 21,000 or roughly 56,000 US in business. What would be tracked in thank you for closed business would be the 38,000. But now here's what's interesting is that as time went on, you look at this slide and you see the average value, but as time goes on, that average value escalates dramatically. It escalates dramatically over time. Again, this is one survey after another survey in the organization. In 2013, there was a thesis done at Kristianstad University in Europe, and it took a look at strong ties and weak ties, and this was very interesting. The number of things that led to building a relationship, making it a strong tie, included 4 key factors: frequency of contact, reciprocity. Now, frequency of contact is touch points. How many times did they connect? How many times did they see one another? Reciprocity was the willingness to help one another. The emotional intensity and intimacy is the how well did they know one another? Did they really develop a trusting relationship? All of that led to improving the strength of the ties, and most importantly, those stronger connections consistently led to substantially more referrals. Now, you've seen some of the hard data. Let's look at how this plays out in a BNI chapter. Here is a photograph that was sent to me by Antonio Oliveira from Portugal. And he sent this to me a little over a year ago. And you'll see that in 2012, that was his first year in the organization. By the way, Antonio is a plumber. He's a plumbing contractor. He repairs plumbing. You see, in 2012, he actually did reasonably well. That's a fair number of referrals. In 2013, there are even more referrals. And then in 2014, it's just this astronomical number of referrals. But wait, it gets better. Earlier this year, Antonio sent me this photograph. And those are the same stacks that he had for 2012, 2013, 2014. But now look at 2015. 2015 is even higher than the previous 2 stacks. This is the kind of thing that we saw in the data that we were looking at just previously, that the longer someone is involved in the organization, the more business they're going to generate in the organization. Now, one other study that was done in 2012 by Tenga Consulting, and this was a survey in the USA. They surveyed thousands of people, some in BNI and some not in BNI. And there were 3 things that they found that really stood out with BNI. One is members get more referrals than BNI. That BNI provides more referrals than other networking organizations. That the members realize quicker sales, that those referrals they tend to be legitimate referrals and you get quicker sales. And third, members receive an amazing ROI or return on investment for those sales. This too was an independent study done in the United States. So what we have here are a number of hard data studies that show that the longer you're in, the more likely you are to get bigger referrals, the more likely you are to get more referrals. Again, the likely you are to get more referrals as those relationships get stronger. You get substantially more referrals. The length of membership increases the referrals. The average value of referrals can be substantial, but the longer you're in, the more the referrals go up in quantity and in value. And you see this play out with this particular member and many, many members year by year. And so it would be interesting for you to keep referral slips like this, but also to keep track of the business through BNI Connect. We can keep track of thank you for closed business. And I know there's some questions about thank you for closed business, and we'll hit those questions in just a little while. So listen, anybody who looks at this data realizes pretty quickly that the longer you're in, the more business you're going to get. There's just no question about that. And so this is where I have come up with this phrase that I think is so important in BNI, and that is that networking is more about farming than it is about hunting, that it's about cultivating relationships with other business professionals. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme. This is a long-term process, and people who come in need to understand that. And as you bring in new members into the chapter, they need to understand that this is really about building long-term relationships. BNI is a marathon, not a sprint. BNI is a marathon, not a sprint. It's not the kind of thing that you can come in and just go, 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 go. I have literally seen people burn themselves out networking, and I recommend this particular episode on the BNI official podcast. And by the way, my experience with the members in India is that you have more people active on my podcast and on my blog and on SuccessNet on a per capita basis than any members in the world. I have to compliment the Indian business professionals. You are really, truly immersed in a culture of learning. On a per capita basis, I receive more comments and questions from members from India on my blogs and on my podcast than I do from any other country on a per capita basis. You represent a couple of percentage points of members, but your engagement is much higher, and that's a real compliment to your country. It is possible, though, to be hyperactive in your networking, particularly hyperactive visibility, and I talk about this in my podcast. There's a really good story in there about a time I was visiting a region in the United States, and there was a particular woman, and everyone called her the Queen of Networking. And that was her moniker. Everybody, she's the Queen of Networking, Queen of Networking. And someone told me that, she goes to all the networking events. Everyone knows her. She's probably the most well-networked person in the community. And later in the evening, I was standing alone with her off on the corner, and she pulled me aside and she said, Ivan, can I talk to you a little bit? I'm like, yeah, of course. For the Queen of Networking, you bet. She said, everybody calls me the Queen of Networking, but I'm not getting any business. I'm not getting any business at all. And I said, oh my goodness, I'm shocked, because like everybody knows who you are. She says, yeah, I know. I go to a ton of networking meetings. And I said, well, just out of curiosity, how many networking meetings do you go to on a weekly basis? And I have the answer in the podcast 347. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head, but it was a lot. I mean, she was like going to 5 or 6 or 7 meetings a week. And I said, whoa. That's probably your problem. You're treating networking like a sprint. You're just going from one networking event to another networking event. And that's not the way to do this. You want to build a powerful personal network. You have got to go deep in building relationships with other people and give it time, because it takes time to build a relationship. There's a really good story in a book that I wrote. I think it's out of print now. It's called Masters of Networking. But it's a great example of what happens if you try to push things too quickly. A good friend of mine, and Mac, I'm sure you know him, Dr. Emory Cowan. Emory, when he was a young man, lived in Atlanta, Georgia. And Georgia in general is known for growing peaches. And as a young man, he drove by on the road and he saw these people selling peaches. And he thought, oh gosh, it's been a long time since I've had peaches. And he bought a whole bushel of peaches. Now a bushel is a lot. He was single. No one lived with him. He had no roommates. and he got this whole bushel of peaches and that he bought, and then he took them home, and he was eating them for days at a time, and they were really good. But one morning he got up, and his kitchen really smelled, and he could tell that the peaches maybe were starting to get overripe, and that concerned him, and so he wanted to do something with the peaches so they didn't get bad. But he wasn't so they didn't go bad. But he wasn't a cook really, and he couldn't bake. But he remembered that his parents used to have this recipe for peach wine, and so he went and got the recipe, and he came back and he got all the equipment to do it, and cheesecloth and strainers and yeast and all of this stuff to do, and he started to make the wine, and he stuck it in his basement where it was nice and cool, and he went down and he tasted it every day, and it wasn't going along, and it wasn't going very fast, and so he figured he needed to pick up the speed. He wanted this to taste this wine quicker. So he brought it all back up. He threw some more yeast in it. He threw it through a blender to emulsify it. He figured this would really kick it up and make it ferment quickly to have this nice peach wine. And he took it back down, and he waited a few more days, and he went down, he brought some of it up, took a taste. And he said, "Ivan, it was the best peach vinegar I've ever had in my life." He completely ruined it. Completely ruined it. Why? Because he tried to push it too quickly. He wanted to make some peach wine. Some things just take time. Building relationships with people take time. There's no way around it. This is why you see the growth and the amount of business generated over time. So what are some of the things that you can do to help move it along? Because, if you move it too fast, the relationship's going to turn into vinegar. But if you take it slowly, there are things that you can do to help build that trust and that relationship. And I'm going to talk about a couple of those things now. One are the one-to-ones. It is so important to do effective one-to-ones with your fellow members. But one-to-ones can become very social. They can also be superficial. It's one of the reasons why I recommend that you use the gains exchange. And I am pretty confident that most of you have seen the gains exchange in India. Mac, you guys have distributed the gains exchange in India, yes?
Yes, Simon.
Yeah.
In the MSPs, we do that.
Yeah, excellent. So the gains exchange is something that helps in the one-to-one. So I urge you to use the gains exchange. And let me tell you a quick story as to how we developed the gains exchange. This was originally done for a book that I wrote years ago called Business by Referral. And I wanted to test it. I was watching people have one-to-ones, and it was like, yeah, so tell me a little bit more about what you do, and this is what I do, and do you have you married, do you have kids, just real superficial stuff, not really very organized. So I wanted to do something that got them to talk about their business and professional life so that they could start to make a connection. Because I thought that the more I watched, I observed, I had anecdotal evidence that the more overlapping areas of interest people had, the more likely they were to actually do business with each other. So I went in to test it with a couple of chapters, and I went into one chapter in particular, and I asked them if they would test it and then fill out a form afterwards. And I showed them the gains exchange, and there were two guys in there that they just did not want to do it. They just did not want to do the gains exchange. They said, this is silly. This is silly. We don't want to do it. And I said, look, do me a favor, just do it. And when you're done, if you still think it's silly, then put that in the review, and I'll take that under advisement. And so they did it. And as they were going through this, when they got down to interests, they found out that they were both coaches for their sons' soccer teams. It's called football in most countries. But for their sons' soccer teams. And now all of a sudden, they pretty much threw out the gains exchange. I mean, they never finished talking about networks. They never finished talking about skills. They were talking about soccer. They were both really interested in soccer and coaching soccer. And so they shared plays with each other. They shared coaching techniques with each other. They ended up actually scouting for each other, where one would go and watch an opponent's team, videotape it, and bring it back to his fellow BNI member, and then that member would go videotape the other guy's opponents and bring it back. And they just shared ideas and resources and helped one another. And then guess what happened? They'd been in the chapter for more than a year and had never given each other a referral, not one referral. But within a couple of months after they found out they were soccer coaches, they both developed that relationship. And it was that relationship that had them really be concerned about one another, to have interest in one another, and to want to help one another. All of this goes back to this slide from Europe, where it shows emotional intensity, intimacy, frequency of contact, that relationship building process develops a strong tie, and those strong ties lead to referrals, because after they had met and started working with one another, they started passing referrals to one another. This is one of the reasons why the gains exchange is important. The goal here is to find overlapping areas of interest. And as members can find overlapping areas of interest, they are much more likely to do business with one another. But wait, don't just trust me. Look at the data. There is data even on this. This was something done by the University of Boccini in Italy last year. It was done by a BNI member who has since become a director. And as you can see, now we know the quality of one-to-ones are important because of the things like what I said in the gains exchange. But what you can see, and what's interesting here, is that the quantity of one-to-ones are also important. Because as the graph shows, there is a direct linear correlation between the number of one-to-ones conducted and the number of referrals given and received every month. So the two bar graphs you see, one a light pink, one a dark pink. The dark pink is the number of referrals given per week. The light pink is the number of referrals received per week. So you can see that as people do more one-to-ones, they are both giving and getting more referrals. The bottom line here is that if you do 3 or more one-to-ones per month, you'll be more likely to give twice as many referrals. And more importantly, you'll be more likely to receive twice as many referrals as people who do 1 or less one-to-one per month. Let me repeat that. If you do 3 or more one-to-ones, 3 or more one-to-ones per month, so we're talking about roughly 1 a week, you'll be more likely to give twice as many referrals, and more importantly, more likely to receive twice as many referrals as people who do 1 or less one-to-one per month. This is compelling data. This is compelling information. And I don't know about you, but for me, you know, I love stories. I love anecdotes. I love hearing how people succeeded. And I love to know that there's hard facts behind it. And what I've tried to do in today's webinar, and this will be quite a bit different than the future webinars, I'll be throwing in some data in future ones. But this one, I think this was so important to really show everyone that this isn't just Ivan saying, hey, stick around longer, you're going to get more. That over and over and over again, we see that people who are in longer generate more business, and that people who are going deep in building those relationships in one way or another, like one-to-ones, are even generating more and more and more business. All right. Well, I anticipated that this would be about 30 minutes worth of material, and it has been exactly 30 minutes worth of material. What I would like to do at this time is start answering questions that you have. I'm happy to answer questions that you've got on the material that I've used here today, or I'm also happy to answer some other questions. As I do these webinars over the next few months, there should be time to do questions on all of them. I think what I'm going to do, if everyone's okay with that, is I'm going to turn on my video so everyone can, there we go, everyone can see me as I'm responding to these questions. And I know, Mac, I believe you can see the list of questions. Are there any in any particular order that you would like me to tackle, Mac, or do you want me to just get started?
There's a member here who was asking, Ivan, what's the right size, chapter size? He's from a chapter of 75. And so is there any upper limit for a chapter size?
Well, look, I didn't think we'd have chapters of 100, and clearly India showed me wrong. You know, I think India was the very first country to have 100 members, so really incredibly impressed. You know, I think I would need to look at the data for chapters, 100 member chapters, 75 member chapters. I can tell you that the optimum number begins at around 50, and since your average in India is around 50, you are far ahead of almost every other country in the world. So I think what I'd like to do in order to answer that question better is, because this whole phenomenon of having chapters of 75, 80, 100 members is reasonably new. We've had some in the past that had 80 members and they did really well. But it's reasonably new. So I can't give you a hard and fast answer. I would tell you that chapters of 50 or more are where you want to be. So 75 is optimum. Now, here's the thing. When you get to 75 members, when you get to 50, 75 members, your most important thing has got to be quality of members. It's got to be quality. Quality is so important. So become even more selective about the people that you bring into a chapter as you get bigger, so that you are bringing in people that are nothing but the best. Always remember, though, that you're going to lose sometimes as many as 20% of your chapter for reasons you can't control. The person has health issues, they move, they change careers. So, you know, if you have a chapter of 75 members, it's possible that you could lose 14 of your members for reasons that the chapter can't control at all. So you've got to always be bringing in people, but you have the opportunity to be a little more selective about it. Mac, did that answer the question? I don't have a hard number on the 75 or 100, but I certainly would like to do some research on that.
There's another question, Ivan, from Anand. He says there are some members who are really givers in the chapter, but they're not getting enough referrals. What do you suggest for that?
Well, the first thing is, you know, I would need to know what profession they're in. So maybe he can, you know, give me one or two of the professions. I mean, these are the kinds of questions that I would ask. There's no cookie cutter answer. What profession are they in? How long have they been a member? Are they doing one-to-ones? So the answers to those questions would determine the answer that I give. But while I'm waiting to see if you can give me a profession or two, let me see if I can tackle that. First of all, if the person who's giving a lot of referrals has been in for less than a year, be patient. It's going to take time. Second is, in some professions, it doesn't matter how long they've been in, they're never going to get a lot of referrals compared to some. For example, a florist is going to get a lot of referrals and they're going to get them quickly. A real estate agent is not going to get nearly as many referrals, but you have to sell a lot of flowers to make up for that one real estate sale. So the quantity of referrals alone is not enough. It's got to be the quality, the value of the referrals. So what profession is the individual in? Are they in a profession that's a high ticket item? Have they added, Mac, as to what profession they're in? Did you notice?
Not yet, but
Okay, and that's fine. So
a few others.
let me give one more example of why this is important. There are some professions that are very difficult to give referrals to, really difficult to give referrals to. I wrote an article for Entrepreneur years ago, and Mac, I'll make a note to send it to you, and when I'll send it to you, and you can share it with the members. It's an article called "Referrals for the Difficult to Refer Business."
The two categories are builder and event managers. What?
Event manager?
Respond.
Okay.
Event manager and builder.
Okay. So
and they're in the chapter for more than 2 years.
All right. So they've been in a long time. The event manager is an unusual profession. I don't see them in a lot of chapters. I don't know if you have in a lot in India. So it takes a real educational process. The builder is a high ticket item. So they're not going to get as many referrals, but when they do get a referral, it's high value. So now the event manager is probably high value, but not nearly as high as the builder. So that article that I wrote will be of some help to people like that individual, referrals for the difficult to refer business. When I started BNI, I was a management consultant. I didn't get any business from advertising. It was all referrals. And I built my business through speaking engagements. So I did an article that was published in Entrepreneur a few years ago. I'll send you the link, Matt. And I recommend that they read that article and use that because I got a ton of referrals once I started using speaking engagements as a way of getting future referrals. And I had my BNI members give me speaking engagements and I counted those as qualified referrals because they led me to business. So that would be one of the things I'd recommend. Also for the two of them, they really need to double down on the one-to-ones. They need to do more one-to-ones so that they can really explain to people how to listen to referrals. One of the presentations I'm going to do over the next several months is how to do good weekly presentations, and I'll spend a fair amount of time talking about, what's a good presentation, what's a bad presentation, and I think they really need to double down. In the meantime, I would tell the person who asked that question to look for a podcast I did called Your Business 101. So just do a search on 101 or quotation marks Your Business 101, and that'll help with those people doing good weekly presentations. I hope that's a few ideas to help the member. Is a good question.
Thanks, Ivan.
Yeah. What else?
Ivan, there's a couple of questions from a few. What's the ideal time to do a one-on-one? How long should they spend at the one-on-one, one-to-one?
Yeah, look, I think anything less than an hour and it's not going to be very meaningful. So I would set aside an hour. I might set aside in my calendar 90 minutes just in case it goes long. But I think 90 minutes is probably the longest that you need to do it as a rule. If there's more to talk about, set up another one, set up a follow-up for a couple of months later. But all the one-to-ones I generally do are 60 minutes. I calendar 90 sometimes, just in case it goes long. But I think that's enough to cover. You want to make sure and keep it at a fast pace so that you get to go through all of your gains and they get to go through all of their gains. But at the same time, you want to have time to be able to stop and say, oh, tell me more about that, and to let them go deep and elaborate. It's not a matter of just let me get everything out and then you get everything out and then let's talk. It should be a two-way conversation throughout, particularly, the first person who's going through their gains, needs to go through it. And here's one way to do it. I'll do my goals, you do your goals. I'll do my accomplishments, you do your accomplishments. Then it becomes very interactive very easily. And you can do that in an hour to an hour and a half. Okay?
Okay. And here's an interesting question from Ashish. He says, occasionally they come across a superior vendor outside of BNI
right.
than the chapter. This poses him an ethical dilemma while making the referral. He's asking for any strategies to address this.
Well, superior is in the eye of the beholder. Listen, if you've got a member who is not a good member, you need to sit down with them and have a conversation about the quality of their business. And if they're not doing a good job, and if there are complaints, you need to get them. You need to open their classification to someone else. So if you have someone who's not doing a good job, your issue is to really focus on moving them out. But look. I had a member in a chapter a long time ago who said, I have been doing business with a dentist for years. We have a dentist in our chapter. I'm never going to use him because I'm kind of a chicken. And when I get a shot, I hate shots. I hate, going to the dentist. And I've been going to this dentist. He's really good enough. So I'm never going to use our dentist. What do I do? And I said to him, look, as much as possible, we want you to use BNI members. That's the only way this works. Now, I understand that there are some relationships that already exist. This is a slightly different question he has, but there's somebody else who he feels is better. I said, look, I understand that there are relationships that exist, but here's my advice to you. I told him, when you if something happens where you are unable to see your dentist, keep the dentist here in mind. And he was like, yeah, okay, sure, I will. Well, it was really funny because a year later he said, hey, I thought I'd give you a call. I went to see Dr. Labriola this week, and Dr. Labriola was the dentist in his chapter. And I said, wow, I thought you weren't going to go see your dentist because you had a dentist you've been seeing for years. And he said, yeah, I know, but I had a filling come out of my tooth, and I called the dentist to go on in, and my dentist was on vacation, and so I was going to be seeing another dentist. And I thought, well, gosh, if I'm going to see another dentist anyway, I remembered what you said, and I went to see the dentist in our chapter. He said, wow, he's great. I thought I had a great dentist, but no way. Dr. Labriola is so much better. He spent so much time with me. He walked me around his facility. He showed me his operation. Then he showed me what happened to my teeth and that I had another tooth that was going to have a problem. He fixed it. He absolutely gives the closest thing to a painless shot I've ever had in my life. He said, I'm crazy for not having seen him a year ago. I'm really glad you planted that seed. So, Mac, the long story short here is, sometimes the person in your chapter is better than you think. And if they're not a good quality, then you need to open that classification and move them out. Talk to the membership committee. Okay?
Okay.
What else?
Ivan, there's another question because India's got large chapters. They're asking how to prioritize the one-to-ones. And this member's from a chapter of 60 plus.
Yeah, well, listen, that's a great question. I'm not sure anyone's ever asked me that before. So I would prioritize one-to-ones first and foremost with the people who want to do a one-to-one with me. So people who are coming to me and saying, I'd like to do a one-to-one with you, are the ones I would prioritize. And the reason for that is they want to talk to you. So if they want to talk to you, then I would start with them. Next, I would go to the people who I think are potentially part of my power team or contact sphere. People who have a symbiotic relationship and can probably refer me a lot of business. So the people I would pick would be people that I think I could help easily and hopefully they could help me easily. And then the third category would be everyone remaining. So, pick it in any way you want, alphabetical, whatever. Strike up a conversation when you're at a meeting. Let's say you're sitting next to someone you've not had a one-to-one with. When you're talking to them, add them to your list. But here's the thing, keep track of all the people you've done one-to-ones with so that you can make sure that over time you're able to do a one-to-one with everyone. Your goal should be to definitely get to do a one-to-one with every member in the year. In a 1-year period, you want to do a one-to-one with every member. After that first year, you don't necessarily have to do a one-to-one with every member, but you still need to keep doing them. Does that answer the question, Mac?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
There's another question where they're asking what's the ideal time to be in a chapter before getting referrals. So I know you covered some of this earlier, but we are saying sometimes members are there for about a year and are still not getting referrals. So is there a particular ideal time to stay in?
Well, again, it depends on the profession. If the person's a printer and they haven't gotten a referral in a year, that's a problem. There's something going on. You're in a profession that should be getting referrals. If you're a financial planner, that's not necessarily a surprise. I'll give you an example. I was talking to someone a couple of years ago as a financial planner, and he said he was in a year, his first year he got no referrals. None. Not one. Second year, he got a couple small referrals. They didn't turn into much business. He was this close. He said, I was this close to not renewing the third year. This close. He said, but I kept hearing you in my head say, it takes time. And certain professions take longer, because when you give a referral, you give a little bit of your reputation away. If you give a good referral, it enhances your reputation. But if you give a bad referral, it hurts your reputation. So people, they're careful to give a business like a financial planner because that financial planner is investing someone's retirement and their money. So, you have to be very careful before you give a referral to a financial planner. He said he decided to do it one more year. Less than 3 weeks into his third year, a member came in and said, I've got a referral for you. It's my best client. I've heard good things about what you've done in the community. I like the answers you give to financial planning questions. Here's his contact information. He said it was the biggest referral he's ever had in his life. Ever. It wasn't just the biggest referral in BNI because it was really only his first big one, but his first big one was the biggest client he's ever had in his life. And it took 2 years and 3 weeks. Can you imagine if he didn't renew at that third year mark, that 2 year, 1 week mark? He would have lost his biggest client ever. So the short answer to the question is it depends on what business you're in. If you're in a business that should be getting referrals constantly, you'd better do some inward looking. You'd better look at yourself and say, what am I doing wrong here? Maybe I'm not doing good weekly presentations. Maybe I'm putting people off somehow. But if you're in a business that's a little more difficult to refer, give it time and catch the webinar I do on how to do good weekly presentations. In the meantime, go to my podcast and look at Your Business 101. Hope that helps, Mac.
Thanks, Ivan. There's another question here that's asking, what's the optimum size for a power team?
Yeah, well, the optimum size for a power team is it's a little bit like saying there's an old joke about a song having too many notes in it. A song can't really have too many notes, and a power team can't necessarily have too many people. They can have the wrong people, which would make it too many. So, honestly, the biggest power teams I've generally seen were 7 or 8. There might be a few exceptions to that. A power team is supposed to be a small group of people, and they've all got to truly be in a symbiotic relationship, compatible, non-competitive professions. A lawyer, a banker, a financial planner, and an accountant. They all have clients that could use services that are offered there, but they use them in a different way. Now, I have seen some power teams where maybe there were a lot of attorneys in a group. There's a chapter in Manhattan that had 8 attorneys, if you can believe that. 8, gosh. 8, and they loved it because they passed each other a ton of business. So now there's a power team that probably had 12 or 14 members in it, and that was large, and that was a chapter of 60 members. That's kind of large, but that's sort of the exception, I think, not the rule. A power team, a group of professionals that have a symbiotic relationship. My favorite one is the photographer, the travel agent, the florist, the caterer. I call this the wedding mafia. Once they bring you in, they don't let you out. Look, I think, the norm is probably 6 or 7. Really large chapters could have larger power teams. I hope that answers the question.
Thanks, Nathan. There's another question from Jatin from Mumbai. He says he's been a member for 3 years, and he has actually done one-to-ones almost twice with all the chapter members. But he would like to know how to increase the quality of referrals. He's not happy with the quality of referrals.
Yeah, so one of the things that I would really focus on is doing more effective presentation. So it sounds to me like, Mac, in my next webinar probably needs to be the how do you do an effective weekly presentation? Because I'm here to tell you it makes all the difference in the world. Makes all the difference in the world. People have a tendency to shotgun their presentation. I'm a full service. I do everything. Whatever you need, like a printer, I do any kind of printing that you need. And when in fact, what you need to do is to be laser specific. I mean, really, really narrow and specific. The more, and this is counterintuitive to business people. Business people, they want to say, look, I can take any client in this field, I will accept. But it's hard to refer somebody when they say, I'll take anybody. And first of all, I've never met anyone called anybody. So you got to get crazy laser specific. I'll give you an example of what I mean. And I think I'm going to switch around the topics and I'll do, how do you do a good weekly presentation on the next one? So here's what I mean about being really specific. Sometimes when I'm working with a chapter, I'll do something where I'll say to them, okay, what I want you to do is give us the name of somebody that you've been trying to reach, but you haven't been able to get past the secretary or the assistant. You can't get past the front door. To meet the person that you want to meet, I need the person's name, their profession, their location, the company they're with. I don't want, so if you're trying to meet someone who's running a hotel, don't say, I want the manager at the Hilton Hotel on the corner of this and that. That's not good enough. I want the person's name. I want a specific person. Well, I do this with chapters and they go, yeah, that's not going to help me at all. And I said, well, let's just try it. And I had one chapter that I did this with where the woman really dragged her feet and she said, I can give you the name, but it's a waste of time because, people just, they're not going to be able to get me through to her. And I said, well, give it a try. So she said, okay, I want to meet Marty Rodriguez. Marty Rodriguez is the #1 Century 21 real estate agent in the world for the Century 21 franchise. She's been #1 for 8 out of the last 10 years. I want to meet Marty Rodriguez. Now, good luck. And I thought, okay, that's going to be tough. But I asked the room, I said, does anyone know anyone that might know Marty Rodriguez? Woman raises her hand. The woman that raised her hand was the sponsor for this member. The member's name was Sally. And Janet was her sponsor. Janet brought Sally into BNI. Janet stood up and said, Sally, Marty's my sister-in-law. Sally said, oh my goodness, why didn't you ever tell me that? Janet said, you never asked. You never asked. So this is a great example where being crazy specific, laser specific, really has a lot more benefit than just standing up and saying I could use anybody, somebody, whatever. So I will do a webinar on just doing weekly presentations. If not the very next one, certainly the one after that. Okay, do we have time? I think we've got 5 more minutes.
A couple of more minutes,
yeah.
yes. Here's two questions which are related. There's a few members who are asking, do service-related business get more, referrals than manufacturing or product-related? And the similar question is, do B2B businesses get more than B2C businesses? Kind of related.
Well, look, I think what's a bigger factor is the ticket value. What's the cost of the referral? Because referrals, the value of the referral, I think, is a bigger indicator of the quantity of referrals than business to business or manufacturing. Because when you're doing a high ticket item, you're giving a lot more of your reputation away, and so I think that has to do with it more than anything. Look, manufacturing, wholesale, distributing, you really have to educate people how to refer you. I remember the first time I had a chapter where we had somebody who sold light bulbs. Now, we were small. B&I was small. We only had 100 chapters, maybe a few more. And he sold commercial light bulbs. Commercial light bulbs. So it wasn't like it was, it wasn't like it was one of these, here we go. I'm taking this. It wasn't a normal light bulb, okay, that you just pull out of a lamp. He sold commercial light bulbs. And so they were like the halogen kind of commercial light bulbs when you turn them on in warehouses. I don't know if any of you have ever been in a warehouse, but when you turn on a warehouse light, it comes on a little and it gets brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter. And it takes about a minute for it to fully power up. He sold those. He didn't even sell the fixtures. He just sold the light bulbs. That's it. So when he applied for membership, I said, I remember his name, Nordy was his name. I said, Nordy, I don't have anybody who sells light bulbs. I don't know if you're going to do well. And he said, I think I'll do just fine. I said, no, seriously, I don't have anyone who sells light bulbs. And nobody could give him like a mercy referral. I call it a mercy referral. I don't have a referral for you, but I'll buy some light bulbs. You couldn't buy his light bulbs because you needed special equipment to put it in. So Nordy said, no, I'll do fine. I'm sure I will. And I said, why? He said, well, look, even if I don't get any referrals, I'm going to have a group of business people that I can refer. And if I can refer people to my clients, I provide a value-added service. And people sometimes will drop you if you're just charging a few pennies more. I want to provide value add. I want them to want me to show up because I'm helping them in other ways. And I think this will help me do that. I said, okay, Nordy, good luck. 1 year later, Nordy stood up at his, we had a big event, and Nordy stood up and said, I've been with this company for 7 years. I've never won a sales contest, but last month I won the sales contest for all expense paid Caribbean cruise for my wife and I. 7 days Caribbean cruise. 40% of all the referrals that I got that turned into sales, 40% of my sales came from referrals out of B&I. And he said, and Ivan tried to stop me from joining, which, by the way, then I'd never done that before. He said, Ivan tried to stop me from joining. So look, manufacturers, wholesale distributors can do well. The key is they've got to teach people how to refer them. They got to teach them who their target market is, and they got to teach them how to refer them. These are the things that one has to do in order to increase business to business or commercial manufacturing referrals. Okay, we might have time for one more short one. If there's one more short one, and then we're done.
There's a question from Santosh Burani from the largest chapter. He says that a lot of people visit his chapter from other chapters and keep asking him to do one-to-ones. He's saying he's not comfortable because he's already got members of the same category in his own chapter. How do you handle such requests?
Yeah, you know what, I think that's the answer, is that you basically say, I appreciate the invitation. At this time, I have a strong relationship with someone in your business. Give me your card, and if that person should leave this chapter, I may take you up on it. But At this point, I've already got a strong relationship, but thank you. No is a one-word sentence. It's okay to say no and be polite. It's okay to be polite with your no, but it's, sometimes you got to say no. So I would say no, and I say no to people when I'm unable to or unwilling to do that. Okay?
Okay. Ivan, as we wrap up, Arti from one of our executive directors from Delhi is asking, or from Gurgaon, when are you visiting India?
I hope to visit India next year. My schedule is booked out several years in advance, and so I will be talking to Mac about the possibility of visiting India next year. I really, truly, genuinely want to come back. It's just, if I caught a different region of BNI every other week, it would take me 24 years to get to all the regions of BNI. So I'm doing my best. I'm going to tell you what a good referral for me would be, everybody. A good referral for me would be a cloning clinic. If you could find someone who could clone me so that I could go to multiple places, that would be helpful. All joking aside, I promise you I'll be back. This time I want to come back with my wife. She is just really interested in coming there and joining me. So I hope that both myself and my wife come. Thanks for the question, Mac. Let me leave you with 2 more slides, everyone. Here's the first one. It's not what you know or who you know. It's how well you know each other that counts. This is so important. It's, the old expression, it's not what you know, it's who you know. I don't believe it's either. It's how well you know each other. And this is why it's really important to go deep and build relationships with people in order to generate referrals. I wanted to leave you with this one last thing. These are possible future webinars. 3+1 for member success, chapter cycles, effective weekly presentations. I may move that one up the list. I think I am going to do 3+1 next month, but we'll see. But I will do effective weekly presentations. Garage to global. How do you take a business from your garage to a global company? That's exactly what BNI was. Literally operated out of my garage. We made new member packets out of my garage in 1985. And then I may have one session that's just Ask Ivan. Come with your burning question, any question. The only dumb question is the unasked question. And I'll be doing those. So Mac, let me thank you for inviting me to do these webinars. It's truly my pleasure. And we had a fantastic turnout to this webinar, and I appreciate everyone being here. That's it for today. You have any closing?
Thanks, Mac.
Thank you, Mac. Anything you want to say?
Well, thank you very much for doing this for us, Ivan, and we look forward to your next month's webinar. Thank you.
As do I. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.